Australia is about to make history on December 10. The country will implement the world's first comprehensive ban on social media use by children under 16. But behind the headlines lies a complex web of technical challenges, political calculation, and the real world implication that most people haven't fully grasped. The ban isn't a simple on or off switch. Social media platforms operating in Australia must take reasonable steps to identify and remove user under 16 from their platforms. Companies face penalty up to 50 million Australian dollars for systematic failures to comply. Communication Minister Anika Wells and E-Safety Commissioner Julie Grant released 85 pages of regulatory guidance this week, revealing how this unprecedented policy will actively work. The most intriguing aspect isn't what the government is requiring, but what it's specifically not requiring. Platforms don't need to verify every user's age. They can use government digital ID as a sole verification method. They don't need to achieve perfect accuracy. Instead, the guidance suggests a multi-layered waterfall approach. That's leverage existing technologies platforms already use for commercial purposes. Think about it. These same companies can target you with advertisement based on your age, your interests, and behavior patterns with deadly precision, as Wells noted. Now, they're being asked to apply similar technology for child protection. The technical toolkits includes natural language processing to analyze how people communicate, logging patterns analysis to identify school age scheduling, emoji usage patterns, and behavioral signals that distinguish teenagers from adults. Platforms like TikTok CEO previously told Australian officials they can identify a child's age within 3 seconds using existing systems. Here's where the policy get genuinely innovative. Rather than creating a surveillance state, the guidance emphasized data minimizations. If you'd been on Facebook since 2009, the platform already knows you're over 16. No additional verification needed. The approach is prioritized removing existing underage account first, with more complex prevention system for new user expected to develop over time. This phase implementation acknowledge the technical reality that perfect enforcement from day one is impossible. E-Safety conducted extensive consultation with privacy commissioners and explicitly designed the system to avoid broad surveillance. The regulatory philosophy centers on platform using existing intelligence rather than creating a new data collecting mechanism. The political landscapes surrounding this policy reveals interesting fault lines. While the Labor government champions the ban as a family protection, opposition responds vary significantly. Shadow Communication Minister Melissa McIntosh support the intent but raise concern about implementation, readiness, and potential digital ID requirements. She argues the government may be stepping back on enforcement while simultaneously warning about privacy implication. Green Senator Sarah Hanson-Young takes a different approach, criticizing the policy as ineffective theater that fails to address harmful content while creating false security for parents. These varying positions reflect genuine uncertainties about how revolutionary policy actually function in practice. The opposition faces the challenges of supporting child protection while questioning execution, a politically delicate balance. Major tech companies aren't waiting for December 10. Tinder announced deployment of facial age estimation technology. Roblox is implementing third-party age verification systems. Apple introduced more granular age verification capability, specifically timed with Australia's announcement. Google published a blog post indicating YouTube will adapt existing US age assurance infrastructure for Australian compliance. This coordinated industry response suggests companies view the Australian policy as inevitable rather than resistible. The business calculation appears straightforward. Developing age verification system costs less than losing access to the Australian market. Platforms executives understand this policy will likely spread to other jurisdictions, making early investment strategically sensible. EU President Ursula von der Leyen has indicated the EU may adopt similar measures. Other countries are watching Australia's implementation closely, viewing it as a real world test case for youth online safety regulation. This creates an interesting dynamic where Australia's relatively small markets could drive global platform changes. If age verification system works effectively here, expect a rapid international adoption. If they fail spectacularly, the global momentum for similar policy might stall. E-Safety Commissioner Grant drew parallels to facial recognition technology adoption, noting that Apple's Face ID initially faced resistance but became normalized within a years. She predicts age verification will follow similar acceptance trajectory. Enforcement won't begin with immediate penalties. E-safety plan a graduated approach, starting with informal engagement before pursuing formal action. Officials acknowledge perfect compliance isn't expected on implementation day. The focus will be systematic failures rather than individual account oversights. Platforms that demonstrate good faith effort will receive more lenient treatment than those choosing non-compliance to test government resolve. Children won't suddenly find themselves locked out of all platforms simultaneously. The system prioritizes removing existing underage accounts while building more sophisticated preventing mechanism over time. Beyond technical implementation, this policy attempts something more ambitious. Cultural change around children's digital experiences. The legislation seeks to create what officials call a chilling effect that reduces underage social media use even beyond direct enforcement. Parents get a new leverage in digital parenting conversation. Schools face pressure to educate students about changing online landscapes. Children themselves must navigate a fundamentally different relationship with social media platforms. The policy success won't be measured solely in compliance statistic, but in broader shift in how family approach children's digital lives. Several critical questions remain unanswered. How will platforms handle age like 15 years old who turn 16 after December 10? What happens when children use VPN? How will the system accommodate legitimate educational or family communication needs? The guidance acknowledged circumvention attempts are likely but provided limited specific about prevention measures. This gap between policy attribution and implementation reality may create the most significant challenges. Additionally, the long-term implication for digital literacy remain unclear. Will restriction access help children develop healthier relationship? with technology, or will it delay necessary skills development for navigating digital environment? Australia's social media ban represents the most significant regulatory intervention in children's digital lives attempted by any democratic government. The December 10 implementation date will mark the beginning of a global experiment in youth online safety regulation. Success or failure will depend on the factor beyond technical compliance: cultural acceptance, enforcement consistency, and whether the policy achieves its intended protective effect without creating unintended consequences. The world is watching Australia's navigate uncharted territory where children protecting technological capabilities, privacy rights, and regulatory authority intersect in unprecedented ways. The result will shape digital policy conversation for years to come. For now, families, platforms, and policymakers alike are preparing for December 10, the day Australia's attempts to redefine childhood in the digital age. This is Miko Santos, and welcome to OSPO.